Hello and welcome to Lecture 2. We're going to be talking about the value proposition and what does that mean? So, what is value proposition? Well, traditionally, it's defined as a concise statement of the benefits a company or a corporation offers to its customers or clients. It's a declaration of what makes the company's products or services unique and valuable. Now, this proposition is not just a part of the business plan, but serves as the guiding message in all market interactions. It's essential for startups to clearly articulate their value proposition as it sets the tone for customer relationships and market positioning. Now, an easy way, I guess, to remember value is that it's a ratio of benefit to cost. No surprise. So if you want the value to go up, you can either increase the benefit you're offering or you can decrease the cost. And of course, what all companies are trying to do with their products and services is to increase the benefit while reducing the cost. And that will increase the value to the consumer, client, customer. And that's what all companies are striving to do. Let's pick an example. No surprise. One of the big ones. How about Apple? So, Apple's value proposition for the iPhone, for instance, has been its combination of, you know, obviously it's if you think it is, but the sleek design, the user-friendly interface, and the seamless integration of its hardware and software. That's kind of been what Apple has been known for. Now, this proposition has, clearly set it apart in a very highly competitive smartphone market. So there's an example of what, a value proposition is. And Apple's done an excellent job at that, at providing that value to its consumers. And the interesting thing is, the value goes up as the benefit goes up, regardless of the cost. So meaning, as long as the benefit keeps going up more than the cost is going up, then the value still goes up. Because that's an interesting, point is that inevitably just reducing the cost may increase the value. Sure, it's cheaper, so it's you can get it, you get some benefit for very little cost. That's valuable, but more importantly, if you just really increase the benefit, the cost doesn't necessarily need to go down. So you don't need to sell it for less, and therefore you get a larger margin. So meaning that your profit will go up because inevitably you're selling for the same same amount, and people are buying it and they love it and they see the value, so they keep buying it, and so then your profit goes up. So that there's a consideration when you're doing your value proposition is obviously the client and the consumer needs to see the value in your product, but you also have to make sure that you price your product in such a way that it is still a value to the consumer, but it's still profitable for you to continue to offer it at that price point. Let's talk a little bit more about value propositions. And let's talk about winning value propositions. So, what makes a value proposition successful, especially in the medical sciences, is all about crafting a compelling narrative or story that clearly communicates the unique benefits and advantages of your product or service over the competition. Now, winning value proposition is going to address what matters most to your stakeholders, like patients, physicians, healthcare providers. It's how you articulate the benefits of your solution and how they outperform the competition, at the same time providing measurable benefits in terms of cost savings, time efficiency, and convenience. So if we look at the figure, On the vertical axes, we have benefits with less at the bottom and more at the top. And the horizontal axis is the price with a higher price or more on the left and less on the right. Now, the winning value propositions are the three squares on the top and the three squares vertically on the right. So what do they show is they show that you have a combination of high benefits, so more, which is the top row. That's always a winner, right? More benefits is good for the client. That's what they're looking for. And then you need to play with the price in that, are the benefits so amazing that they're willing to spend more? So that's the far left corner. That's still a good winning value proposition. Even better if they get lots of benefits for the same price. Wow. And then ridiculous, what if you get all those benefits for a lesser price? That's crazy. Very successful, right? Now, however, if you go down, so you're in the price is less, but the benefits are less, well, people might still be interested because it costs less and they're still getting some benefits. Even if you get much less benefits for much less price, some people are still going to be willing to pay that because it's costing them much less and they're getting much less benefits, but it's affordable. So it's still going to be a winning value proposition. Now you can see that the red blocks, those are losing value propositions. And that's no surprise when you have less benefits for more price. Who the heck is going to pay a high price for something that's really has very little benefit to it? They won't. Even if you increase the benefits a little bit, but the price is high, people are still not going to be willing to pay for it. And if the price goes down, a little bit or stays the same, basically it's in the middle, but the benefits still suck, well, once again, people are just not gonna pay for it. And when you have, the same benefits for the same price, okay, so now you're kind of in an in-between, not sure what to do zone, but that's still not a winning value proposition, right? It's kind of a nothing value proposition. So let's talk about an example. So Johnson & Johnson, I'm sure you've all heard of Johnson & Johnson, massive company in the healthcare space. Now their value proposition has basically been built upon reliability and safety for its medical devices, which is one of their biggest divisions. And the focus on quality has earned them the trust of healthcare professionals and institutions, and it has made them a leader in the medical device industry. So there's an example of Johnson & Johnson. What they focused on is, for their value proposition, is product reliability and safety, and that's what people are willing to pay for, is because they know that the benefits, which is the reliability and safety of their products, is worth the price that they're asking for in the market. Let's continue on and talk a little bit about the expanded value proposition. So in the medical sciences, an expanded value proposition goes beyond just what your typical product and service attributes are. It includes the product's functionality, quality, timeliness. It also includes factors like public perception, customer satisfaction. This expanded view helps in creating a comprehensive image of your company in the public eye or in the consumer's eye, ensuring that all aspects of the value are considered and met. So it's more of a holistic approach to understanding and communicating, this multifaceted value proposition that your company is bringing to its customers and the industry. So you can see here now on the slide that value is starting to get a little bit more complex than just benefit and cost. Now you have product and service attributes, which is your functionality, your quality, your price, your time, et cetera, et cetera. The image, so how is your company viewed, right? So is it a positive image? Is it a robust, a strong, image? And how about the relationship with your customer, right? Customer satisfaction is important. So you may have a fantastic product, you may have a very a very strong image in the market, but if you have terrible customer satisfaction, you're going to lose some of your value proposition because people are going to say, well, the product's great, it's very reliable, it has a great name. However, if anything goes wrong with it, you're screwed. You can't get any customer satisfaction, right? You can't get any customer service, and so that's a problem, and that erodes your value proposition. So, for example, Roche, which is a very well-known, very respected pharmaceutical company, not only focuses on the efficacy of its drugs, but also emphasizes patient support programs, commitment to ethical and sustainable practices. And this contributes to their expanded value proposition and inevitably resulting positive reputation. So, how do you align your value proposition strategically with your market? Well, there is a tool called the Value Proposition Canvas, which is used for understanding your customer needs and aligning your product's solutions with those needs. It's essentially a framework for startups that you use when you're presenting to external stakeholders. The canvas can help visualize the match between what your product offers and the specific problems it solves for customers. That's always important, right? What's the problem you're solving? How does your product solve it? Now, by using this tool, startups can ensure that every aspect of their offering is designed to address the market's requirements, and this enhances the overall value proposition. So, for example, a diagnostic site startup might use this canvas to map out how its innovative testing technology addresses the specific pain points of healthcare providers. So, for instance, if you see her as an example, it's always pain and gain, right? So, what are the gains? What is the pain, right? And you're addressing that, right? And maybe you may be addressing faster results, lower costs, but ultimately, what you're trying to do is align, your value proposition with your customer needs, taking into account, pains and gains, right? Let's talk a little bit about the customer or client. So identifying the customer is a key step for medical science startups, and that's because in this sector, customers can range from end users like patients to larger entities like hospitals or research institutions or clinics. It's essential to understand who will directly benefit from your innovation. So, for example, if you're developing a new medical device, your primary customer might be healthcare facilities rather than individual patients. And recognizing your customer base will help you tailor your value proposition, ensuring it resonates with the right audience and addresses their specific needs. So, in general, I would say that a patient is not usually our customer. And the reason for that is because in Canada, we're lucky, we have a universal healthcare system where there's a public payer, which is the government. So patients are generally not out of pocket for their medical care. And so if you're developing an innovation that is actually a medical device, so it's a regulated medical device, then it's most probably going to be the clinic or the healthcare professional, or that's who's going to be using it, and therefore the client or the customer becomes the institution or the hospital or the clinic. Now for patients, if you're in the market for a wellness product, this is where maybe your patient would become your client, because a wellness product, which is not regulated, doesn't come under Health Canada, would be sold directly to the patient. An example of a larger company that develops technology for the healthcare industry would be Illumina, for instance. It's a genomics company, and it would identify, or it identifies, academic research institutions, large healthcare systems as its primary customers, because what they do is high throughput DNA sequencing platforms. And so, they will need to align their value proposition with the needs of these organizations. There's an example of, a larger company that is looking at, at the market and saying, okay, who's my customer and who should I be providing value to, right? Now, on the other hand, let's say you have a company that produces those magic bags, the bags that you can put in they're full of beads, or they're actually full of grain. And then you put them in your microwave and you heat them up, and then you put them around your neck, or, on your leg, or wherever to soothe, some of your, pain or whatever. So there's an example of a wellness product. So that's not regulated under Health Canada. And who are you selling to? Well, you're selling directly to the consumer. And in this case, it would be the quote unquote patient who's looking for some way of heating their low back or their neck. And so they would be purchasing directly from you. Not to say that you couldn't sell, a whole batch of them to an institution, or let's say a retirement home that want to buy a whole bunch. But generally, in that case, this wellness product, your primary consumer is going to be the patient, and therefore your value proposition is going to be tailored towards helping the patients with your wellness product. So how can we go about creating value in the medical sciences? So creating value goes beyond innovative products. It involves understanding market demands, taking note of customer feedback and acting on it, adapting to the changing market dynamics, which you see every day now, especially when it involves technology. Now, effective value creation is, marked by continuous product assessment. And this is going to be based on market research and customer input. Always listen to your customer, your client. And this iterative process ensures that your product will remain relevant, solving real world problems and increasing its market resonance. Now, startups have the advantage of agility, allowing them to quickly adapt and refine, what they're offering based on direct market feedback. And that's one of the biggest advantages of the startup, because once you get to be a very large enterprise, it's like a big ship. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of time to change direction. Now, we've already talked about the company Moderna, and which is known for its mRNA vaccine technology. And here's an example of a company that has continuously adapted its platform to address like emerging infectious diseases, right? And it's their ability to pivot and create value in response to the changing health challenges that has been critical to their success. So how do you display value, right? So displaying value in the medical sciences requires a strategy that transcends traditional advertising. It's all about proving the effectiveness of your product through credible data and evidence, such as clinical trial results, and leveraging the influence of medical professionals. So why medical professionals? Well, of course, because we're in the medical sciences, and it's medical professionals or healthcare professionals that are delivering care. So this approach is essential in a field where trust and reliability are paramount. And by demonstrating the efficacy and reliability of your product, you are not just advertising it, but you are also building its credibility among the most critical audience, which in your case is healthcare professionals and decision makers. Now, interestingly, when we start talking about regulatory processes that are, overseen by Health Canada here in Canada, or FDA in the United States, we'll see that this credibility is also important for regulatory approval. So meaning that you have to have not only some solid, clinical validation in hand, but you also need to have any form of evidence that supports, the effectiveness, the efficiency, and the reliability of your product. Now, as an example, Medtronic is a medical device company, and it often collaborates with healthcare professionals in order to conduct its clinical studies, which demonstrate the effectiveness of their devices, providing the solid evidence of value to clinicians and hospitals that it needs. So let's look at a case study. So I'm going to go back to 23andMe just because I love the story. It's a great company that struggled and made it. So they're a great example. So 23andMe is a company that revolutionized the personal genomics industry. Their value proposition centered around providing personalized health reports based on genetic testing, right? So they're filling a niche in the market, right? By offering consumers like you and me insights into their genetic predisposition to various health conditions. So inevitably people are interested in that. Not everybody, but many people would be interested in knowing what their predisposition is or what their risk is, what their assumed risk is going to be. Now, so the unique problem that they're trying to solve is the lack of human genomic information that people want, right? They want to know, do they have any information about their gene? Is there any information about their genome that could directly link them to, an inheritable disease? And so that's the unique problem that they're addressing, is that people don't know this, right? And so the innovation was, how do we share that information with, you out there, you, the public, right? And so that would be the personalized health reports, is what their innovation is, right? So the value proposition here that they're building is to you, the consumer, right? So you're going to pay money in order to get tested and have that information shared with you, right? So that's great. However, there needs to be a little bit more to that, and so what they did is they looked at some collaboration, right? And that is, maybe with all this information we're collecting, we can provide insightful genomic data not only to the users directly, but also to institutions and pharmaceutical companies for research. So there's another part of their value proposition to a different quote unquote client. So it's not going to be direct consumer, but it's going to be to these institutions. So there's another client. So that builds on their value proposition. So it's a combined, value proposition, or what's called a collaborative ecosystem. Now, their strength lies in their ability to navigate the regulatory changes and adapt their business model, right? And this showcases the importance of having to be flexible and responsive in the medical sciences sector, because that's what they had to overcome, was the challenge of regulatory basically shutting them down, right? And saying, nope, can't do that. And so they had to work with the regulatory body in order to satisfy what they wanted, and then be successful in marketing their product. So that's their strength. But overall, they had to really think long and hard about their value proposition and get that evidence basically to support this value proposition. So meaning that people, consumers, clients are going to see value in what they're doing and want to actually purchase their product, right? And so that's the value proposition. And this one just shows you one that is part of what we call a collaborative ecosystem, which always strengthens their value proposition. So continuing on the 23andMe case study, this slide just simply shows or reinforces how the company was successful in increasing their value proposition. So, as you remember, one of the problems they faced early on as a company is that the FDA shut them down. Basically said, nope, you can't use your methodology of DNA testing because it's not valid. It hasn't been validated. It hasn't been shown that it can be considered basically medical advice. And so they pivoted and they went into ancestry and wellness reports, which basically you're signing a waiver that's saying that you agree this is not medical advice, but you're interested in knowing what your ancestry is, or wellness in the sense that, oh, maybe you're a slow caffeine metabolizer, so you shouldn't be drinking as much coffee, or that kind of stuff, right? And so they were super successful because of that. And then what they also did is they looked to expand their value proposition. So they're not only selling to you and me, but they're also monetizing their data in the sense that they're sharing their data for research. And if it's an academic endeavor, of course they're not going to charge for it, but they can also sell that information to companies that are interested in knowing those relationships or findings for their own business, right? And so this slide here just shows, for instance, for ApoE or APO or however you want to call it. So this gene is related to the development of Alzheimer's, and they're just showing that there's a difference in the various genotypes, the frequency of genotypes across ethnicity. So there's something that can be shared for research and is for them a form of marketing, right? Because essentially what they're doing is they're reinforcing in the market that what they're doing is valid, right? Is credible, is important, is contributes back, right? And so then they tweeted or X'd that they have 46 contributions to research, and this is their way of promoting their product, right? Which is genetic testing. Now let's talk a little bit about probably one of the most important concepts for when you're developing a product for the medical sciences, and that's the cost benefit ratio, which you obtain from the cost-benefit analysis. Now, if you look at the figure on the slide, you'll have in the y-axis or the vertical axis benefit, and on the x-axis or the horizontal axis cost. So inevitably, if you have high cost and high benefit, you're in the top right quadrant. And in this one, it's the high cost, high benefit dilemma in that what do you do with these, right? And so is it worth paying for the benefit? Well, some people will say yes. So if you have the money, then you're like, yeah, of course, why wouldn't I pay for it, right? However, for a universal healthcare system like we have, it's not that great because the government's going to say, well, there's a high cost involved in getting this benefit, and we have to pay for, treating and caring for all of our constituents and, or citizens, right? So then these would be given what would be called medium priority. So definitely something to consider, but there's probably going to be a little bit of favoritism to those people who can afford it. So then if you reduce the cost and you maintain the benefit, then bingo, you're in the top left quadrant, or what's called the fourth quadrant, and that one is the low cost, high benefit, and these should be given the highest priority because these are the best. Right? This is the best of the best. Get your product out there. Now, if you drop the benefit, but you maintain the low cost, then you end up in the bottom left quadrant, which is your first quadrant, and that's the low cost, low benefit. And these are okay, but the benefit's not great, but the cost is not so much. So you're thinking, well, maybe. Right? So these would be the lowest priority, right? These are lowest priority products. And then finally, if you have an increased cost and a low benefit, which is in the bottom right quadrant, which is the second quadrant, high cost, low benefit, then these are just basically not worth it. You should just discard the product because who's going to pay a lot of money for very little benefit? Nobody. So in a nutshell, that's what the cost benefit ratio provides you. And interestingly, in companies, this used to live under the data science, statistics, analysis, departments in companies, right? But it's moved now to marketing. And the reason for that is because of everything we've been saying is that as a company, you need to provide your clients, your customers, evidence that your product is has a high value proposition, and is credible and reliable and all that. And so the cost benefit is an important concept to be shared with your clients and customers, not just internally about, oh, I'm doing a great job. It needs to be shared with them, because that's going to provide that feeling of value that your clients and customers are looking for. And so that's the reason cost benefit analysis is now mostly found under the marketing, or found in the marketing departments. Now, of course, it's the statisticians and the data scientists that are working those calculations with the data, but they do it for the marketing department. Okay, let's have a look at an example of a cost benefit analysis. The problem we're addressing here is obstructive sleep apnea, which is the inability to breathe through the nose while sleeping, which causes snoring, possible insomnia, wake and sleep and wake and sleep and wake and sleep, and really pissing off your partner. So what's the standard of care currently? It's the CPAP. The initial cost, $1,600. The yearly maintenance of the machine is $900, with a total cost for 8 years projected, and you'll see why we're using 8 years, just to make the math easy, is $8,800. Now, the new treatment is the Inspire sleep device surgery. So the initial cost is $15,000. There's no yearly maintenance, because once the surgery is performed, it's done. And then the total cost, of course, is $15,000. So in terms of cost, the Inspire sleep device surgery is way more. Well, it's about double, actually, a little less than double, for 8 years. So the question is, which one do you do? Which ones do you buy? So then that's where you're going to look at, what's the value proposition. So inevitably, if you just looked at cost, well, the CPAP is the way to go. But if you want to avoid, let's say, yearly maintenance fees, well, then the device, the surgery is the way to go. How about the convenience of, or the inconvenience of having to use the CPAP machine every night? That's a factor that needs to be put in there. Also, which one works better? So you may have this wonderful surgery, which takes away the need to have a CPAP machine. There's no cost every year, but doesn't work very well. Well, that's a problem, right? So we need to know all of this in order to make our decision for the value, for the value proposition. Do we see value in it? And the cost benefit analysis is only one piece to the puzzle. And so you can see here that this analysis is insufficient for us to make a decision. So there are basically 3 different types of cost benefit analysis. And this one, the CBA, is the most basic, and it involves a monetary comparison of costs and benefits. So the costs are in dollars and the benefits are in dollars. So in this case, you're just going to look at a way of comparing overall cost and benefit. So if we were to just look at this, then inevitably, the cost is almost twice as much using the sleep device surgery. However, there's another type of analysis called the cost effectiveness analysis, and that one uses cost in dollars, so monetary. However, the benefit is not measured in monetary units. They're measured in some other unit of a desired outcome, and that would be your cost effectiveness analysis. So it would be the intervention costs for each let's say visit to the emergency department averted. That would be a cost effectiveness analysis, right? The last one is the cost utility analysis. So the cost utility analysis is where you compare cost effectiveness across different types of interventions with differing outcomes, but most importantly, by comparing usefulness or utility as the common metric. So this is the one where the non-monetary units are usually reported or typically reported in years of life, quality adjusted life years, so QALYs, disability adjusted life years, so DALYs, or another form of health utility index. So this is the one where it's like a trade-off, right? So you're saying that I'm willing to to pay so much in terms for healthy years in exchange, right? So meaning that your QALY is going to be worth so much money, and that's the value in extending your life in a healthy state. That's what the QALY or the quality adjusted life years represent. So then in a cost utility analysis, you're going to see in terms of QALYs, how what the value proposition is basically, right? It comes down to that again. So in this case, for instance, if you were to use the Inspire sleep device surgery, yes, it's costing you basically twice as much over 8 years. However, maybe let's say the efficacy is fantastic, like it works extremely well. The patient outcomes are just off the chart. So meaning that you sleep better, like you just you haven't been sleeping like this in forever, right? And so inevitably there, your trade-off is not measurable in dollars because you're saying, I just feel so much better and I have so much energy and I'm healthier. And so those would be measured as a cost utility analysis where you're saying that, it could be measured, for instance, just in life years. So meaning that because you're sleeping so well, you're going to extend your life by, 5 years, So that would be a years of life. But then the quality adjusted life years would mean that you're not necessarily extending your life by 5 years, but what you're doing is you're replacing some of those years ahead of you with quality years. So I mean that you're not extending your life. However, the years that you are living are in perfect health. So that would be your QALYs. Anyway, there's a whole course on cost, benefit, cost effectiveness, and cost utility. But there's just an overview, and it's just showing you how important the tool is in order for you to, as a company, determine your value proposition. So your product is doing amazing. You're getting fantastic feedback. It's passing all the, clinical trials with flying colors. You have fantastic validation. You've got evidence. You've got, market feedback saying it's great. So now you're thinking, okay, who's going to pay for this? And because we're in the medical, system, and we're in Canada where it's a universal healthcare system, generally the government pays for a lot of our care. So when you do your value proposition, you're going to need to gear your value proposition to large payers and potentially public payers, so the government. If not, it's going to be a government agency, or it's going to be, somebody who's paid by, taxpayer dollars from the government in order to deliver care. So regardless, though, the oversight is going to be at the public level, so I mean the government level. And you're going to find immediately that when you pitch the value proposition, they're going to look for, very importantly, they're going to look at, is your product valid? So is it efficacious? But then they're also immediately going to look at what we just talked about, and that is it cost effective, right? And so one way, or what is going to be required of you, is to perform what's called a health technology assessment, which is a systematic approach to evaluate the consequences of new health technologies. And in the medical sciences, the HTAs are used by decision makers to assess new products or interventions. And they measure the impact of these innovations in practice, considering both clinical effectiveness and cost effectiveness. And for startups, understanding the HTA process is essential for ensuring that these products meet the the strict requirements of the healthcare system and demonstrate clear benefits over existing solutions. So the HTA is required for drugs and vaccines in Canada and is optional for medical devices, but you can't get away with not performing it for medical devices. So even though it's optional, you're going to end up doing it. So for instance, if you want the government to pay for it, then you're going to need what's called a billing code, and it's per province because, as you know, healthcare is delivered at the provincial level through Canada through transfers from the federal government to the provinces. And each province is going to have to decide for itself whether or not it's going to issue a billing code so that healthcare professionals can actually, bill back, the cost of whatever your treatment is. And for this to happen, you're going to have to go and, basically meet with, government representatives or provincial government representatives in order to convince them that there's an appropriate value proposition for them. And so they will immediately perform a health technology assessment along with you generally. And for instance, in Ontario, that's going to be done in concert with Health Quality Ontario, and they will perform a cost effectiveness analysis with you. Or without you, if it's always best if you're part of the process, but if not, you can just, give them a proposal and then they will look at it on your behalf. And if the health technology assessment goes well and it's shown to be not only efficacious but also cost effective, then they will consider issuing a billing code for your product. Okay, so everything's going fantastic. You're working with Health Quality Ontario. They're giving you great advice. They're giving you great guidance and resources, and you're moving to the HTA. So since you have to kind of do this in all provinces, you're thinking, well, geez, is it going to be different in every province? Well, no. So many years ago, 1989, actually, there was an independent organization that was put together by the governments called the Canadian Agency for Drugs and Technologies in Health, CADTH. And what they do, or what they were put together to do, was to perform these HTAs for across Canada and to standardize the process. So the CADTH provides research and analyses that are required for the HTAs, and it's actually them that will also recommend or not the product when you get the report. And it's supposed to be an objective analysis, right? And so each agency across Canada and all provinces will use CADTH in order to perform the analysis with them, get the report, and then make their decision. So but once you plug in with Health Quality Ontario, they'll tell you all about that and they'll engage CADTH on your behalf. So now you have your value proposition all worked out. You're all happy. You're in the process of trying to get a billing code. By the way, that takes like a long time. HTA, you're looking at 3 to 5 years minimum. Anyway, everything's fantastic. Well, now you got to deal with the fun of competition. So the problem with startups in the medical sciences space these days is that there is a significant challenge due to intense competition with many companies working on similar problems, and a lot of this is due to this new era of AI, right? Because not only is it just a hot area to be in, but it's also a very useful tool for innovation, right? And so there's this competition which underscores basically the importance of your unique value proposition and the need for now strategic collaboration. So innovative solutions and partnerships can lead to a more synergistic approach, which potentially will increase the overall value and impact in the market. So you as a startup need to navigate this competitive landscape by not only focusing on product innovation, but also on building strategic alliances in order to differentiate yourself from your competition by offering something that's more unique and of higher value, right? Not surprisingly, the most or the biggest increase in startups in the medical sciences space has been in radiology, or the application of AI in radiology has been like an absolute boom in the last few years. And as of March of last year, which is 19, what am I saying? 2023, sorry. There's been 96 AI companies building, the next fantastic tools in radiology tech. And that's, a lot of competition for, similar space. And so you need to be aware of that when you're getting into this area. Now, don't be, dissuaded by it. Having a lot of competition is not necessarily all a bad thing. So if you're going to create a product that's exactly like your friends, then yeah, that's a problem, because that means that you're going to compete in the market for clients. However, if you are in a new market, so if you are in a new technology, something that has not been offered yet or is only in its infancy, then having competition is actually a good thing, because what it does is it grows the market. So meaning that if you don't, if you have people out there, they don't know what you offer, they don't know how it works, they don't know about your innovation, they don't know if they should trust it, they don't know if they can rely on it. Having competition helps, because then you have multiple companies that are all, advertising, marketing the same concept, and therefore people are, more exposed to it. And so then they start to say, well, actually that's not a bad idea. I should try that. And then they choose, a company or a product to buy. But it's better than if you were all out there on your own trying to establish the market. It's very costly to do that. And so to have friends, well, I guess competitive friends that are out there establishing the market with you can be very, very helpful. Let's talk a little bit more about the competition. So let's say you are in the market and you have a competitor, and you're trying to establish yourself, of course, and you're advertising, you're marketing, you're selling, everything is going fairly well, and then you decide, okay, we you know what, we're progressing, but not as fast as we'd like. So you do a little bit of an analysis. So this figure here shows you conceptually what you're looking for when you do the analysis. And that is identifying what is your competitive advantage. So a competitive advantage is the intersection between your customers' needs, wants and needs, and what you offer. So if you offer what they want, that is a competitive advantage. But if you take into account your competitor, who also has their offering for the same customer needs, if they offer something that satisfies the customers, then you have an overlap between what you offer and they offer, and that's called parity, and that's in the middle of this diagram. But if they offer something you don't offer that customers want or need, then that's the competitive disadvantage, or their competitive advantage. So what you want to try and do is maximize the area that's the competitive advantage, minimize the competitive disadvantage, and ultimately you're going to want to minimize parity. So if you do have something in common with your competitor, or if you have, let's say everything is in common with your competitor, then essentially there will be no competitive advantage, and someone is just going to choose to purchase your product over another, or vice versa. That's okay too. If the market is extremely large, let's say everybody uses the product, then you have a huge market. And well, is that a bad thing to have a competitor in there that people just choose? I guess it'd be almost like Coke or Pepsi. I mean, is there really a competitive advantage? Not really. I mean, they both provide cola. They're both yummy. They both taste very similar. So really, you buy one or the other depending on marketing, depending on advertisements. Like which one do you believe in? Which one do you want to identify with is what you buy. So most of it is going to be parity, right? In terms of the distribution of advantages, competitive advantages. It's most of it's going to fall under parity. But if you have a product that truly offers something different than your competitor, then it's your competitive advantage, and then you start to minimize this parity, right? And that's what you want to do. You definitely do not want competitive disadvantage. That's not a good thing. So what's the best way of gathering data for this analysis? It's listening to your customers, listening to your clients. Feedback from your customer and clients give you consumer preferences, and this is what you're going to need in order to understand market dynamics, because it changes, right? Consumer preferences change, right? And so that's reflected in market dynamics. And if you understand market dynamics, then you're going to you'll be able to best position yourself in the market in order to increase your competitive advantage by, of course, improving your value proposition. So in the previous slide, I was talking about listening to your customers and your clients in order to understand their wants and needs. So there is a psychology behind an effective value proposition, and empathy and active listening are vital in the business world, especially in medical sciences, because you're listening to basically your patients, right? Now, these skills enable a deeper understanding of the different perspectives, fostering stronger relationships and encouraging innovative solutions like the one you're working on. Now, by actively listening and empathizing with your customers or clients, your stakeholders, your team members, startups can enhance collaboration and, importantly, avoid misunderstandings and effectively address the needs of their market. Now, this approach is crucial in building a customer-centric business model that will resonate with the target audience. Building a connection with your client base is going to improve longevity of your product. It's similar to building your brand, right? So Apple is fantastic at doing that. So they've built out their brand where they have a following of users, of customers that just love everything Apple and will be happy to replace their phone, every year, that the new version comes out, which is, when you think of it, a bit crazy, right? But it's just that they really believe in the brand. They identify with the brand. And so that's, the success, right, of Apple listening to its client base in order to make sure that it fulfills both the wants and the needs. So there's a difference between wants and needs, right? The need is, I need a phone. I need it. Like I use my phone to communicate for work, for friends, on the bus, when I travel. I need a phone. I need a smartphone. Okay, that's a need. Does it mean that you have to pay thousands of dollars for a phone, for a smartphone? No, you don't. That's a want. So the want is, I want an iPhone because I love iPhones. I think they're cool, and it makes me a cooler person to have an iPhone. So that's a want. And so by, Apple understanding both the wants and needs of its client base, it was able to produce a brand with innovative products that satisfy both. And in doing so, it gives it a competitive advantage, because that's, the parity there is getting reduced because people are seeing both wants and needs in the Apple product, as opposed to just smartphone, don't really care what it looks like, don't care, how it feels, or, how it, operates, or anything like that. And that, so then it would be parity, right, with other, smartphone brands. Let's expand a little bit on this psychology behind effective value proposition. So we've been talking mostly about customers or clients, right? And that is, we're meeting unmet needs. We're satisfying wants and needs of these customers and clients. And generally, your value proposition to a client is hopefully simple, because simplicity is more powerful, right? It's easier to retain, easier to understand. But now let's expand to another two groups. So one very important is the internal stakeholders. So that's basically people within your company, right? That, you need to make sure that there's alignment with the mission of the company. Your employees are happy and satisfied, and they're growing with the company. You have this intrinsic motivation. So that's sometimes can be like, drinking the Kool-Aid, right? So everyone believing in your company and believing in the value proposition, that's very important for your company to be successful, your startup to be successful. And then finally, you have your external stakeholders, and that one is all about trust. It means that generally you're talking to investors, partners that want to collaborate with your company, work with your company. And so the most important thing is trust. And so you want that as well, that your value proposition satisfies them as well, so that they believe in it. They say, oh my God, that's a fantastic, value proposition. What your company is offering is something I believe in. And that will build better relationships with your investors, better relationships with your partners, which altogether will provide a very solid foundation for your startup moving forward. The last thing I'll point out is that a lot of what I've been talking about deals with emotion. And so, the expression emotional intelligence. So you definitely need to think about this, is that people make decisions based on facts, certainly, but a lot of it is based on emotion. It's how they feel about it, right? And it's based on, how they were brought up, cultures, education, past experience. There's a whole variety of things that contribute to how you make a decision. But don't think that everyone makes logical decisions. No, a lot of a decision is made with emotion, especially let's say if you're an Apple lover. It is emotional when you get a new iPhone. You're really excited about it, and it's like, I really want that because it's so cool. Well, that's emotion as opposed to a logical decision. So why do you want to be empathetic, or do what's called active listening? So the main goal really is to understand perspectives, right? You need to understand different perspectives because they're not all yours. Your clients may not share the same perspectives you do, or the same perspectives your internal stakeholders do, or your external stakeholders do. And so by understanding these perspectives, you can better provide a targeted value proposition for your market, segment, or your client base in the market. The next thing you want to look for is to build relationships, right? Building stronger relationships with your clients and your stakeholders is key to success down the road for your startup. And finally, innovative solutions, right? Try and make sure you've thought of your solution from different angles, right? From different, once again, perspectives, because that's going to give you a more innovative solution, essentially, right? Okay, now that we've talked about everybody but you, let's talk about what you need to do. So the number one thing you need to do is to believe in your product. The belief in your product is essential for success, particularly in the medical sciences. Unfortunately, there is this exit culture in the biotech startup space that exists, where the focus is on raising capital rather than, product viability, success, product success, product reliability, innovation. And this highlights the need for genuine belief in your product, because if it's only for raising capital, what's going to happen is there'll be no tolerance for, pivoting or some short-term failure. 23andMe would not have even gotten started because there was this first immediate huge failure where the FDA closed them down. So if there was really only this, exit culture, like, make the money and run, they would have made no money and they would have run. They would have stopped, right? And so a strong conviction in your product's value and potential impact can influence funding decisions and shape the capital landscape in your space, in the medical sciences space. So believing in your product leads to more sustainable and impactful outcomes. It drives innovation and commitment, and most importantly, long-term success. So yes, drink the Kool-Aid. I mean, yeah, sure, you need to be, objective at times, but definitely you need to believe in your product. So Elon Musk is not necessarily my favorite guy, but he is very successful, and he has an unwavering belief in the potential of what he does. So electric vehicles with Tesla, space exploration with SpaceX. But he because of his unwavering belief, he has attracted investors. He has attracted like a following. I don't want to mean that in a negative way. I mean that in a positive way, that people actually believe with him, right? And that has led to breakthroughs in these industries that he is responsible for. So we owe him that, right? But you can see it when he's interviewed that he truly believes it. Like that he's doing it no matter what. I mean, lucky him, he's got the money to do it now. But he's keeps going forward because he's enjoying it. That's his belief, right? And good for him. And I think that's something that you can follow. Like that should be something that you should take as a model. Okay, that brings us to the end of lecture 2. Hope that was enjoyable. Our next lecture is going to talk about markets and industries. See you there.